FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
Congressman Sam Farr from California's 20th District, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Well, just for starters, can you tell us a little bit about your district and why agriculture is important to it?
Well, there are 435 districts in the United States of America, and I happen to represent the most beautiful, the most productive, the most bright, the best represented district in all of the United States. It's the Central Coast of California. It's known as the salad bowl capital of the world. It's also known as probably the most beautiful place in the world. It's the Monterey Peninsula, Big Sur, Santa Cruz, and beautiful Pajaro and Salinas Valleys.
You also serve as the ranking member of the House Agri-Appropriations Subcommittee, wrapping that process up here recently. But what are some things that you hoped to accomplish throughout that process that you were able to accomplish?
Well, when I came to Congress in 1993, my goal was to really represent the district. We had two major things going on. First was the largest military base closure in the United States, Fort Ord, which was the largest training base. And to deal with that, for new phenomena, what do you do with all this 28,000 acres of land, and how do you convert it to some other use than military? And I've been working on that all the time. So I got on the committee that deals with that, the Appropriations Committee for Military Bases and Quality of Life for military families. And the second was agriculture, because Monterey County is one of the most, probably the most productive county in the United States, if not the world. And when you think about it, we don't grow any commodity crops, so we don't get subsidies from that, or do we get any water from the Central Valley Water Project? So there's no government subsidies for any of the crops that we grow. It's all free enterprise marketing, and it's all fresh and perishable. So if you delay the product in shipment or let it sit on a dock in a foreign country before you inspect it, the strawberries don't look very healthy, neither does lettuce. So it's also a challenge for food safety, because it's all fresh. It's, you don't cook strawberries, you don't cook lettuce, and those are the products, two of the largest products that we grow, in addition to about 85 other crops that are grown in Monterey County. So I'm just at the peak of excitement, political excitement, on the two committees, subcommittees of Appropriations Committee. And Appropriations Committee is the committee that really decides how all the money is spent. So I think it's the most important committee in Congress, and I think those are two of the best subcommittees to be on.
Now, it's not an uncommon thing in Washington to use the appropriations process to maybe include policy writers blocking implementation of topics that are maybe not so popular among the majority of Congress, and something that has been debated quite a bit, agriculturally speaking, throughout this appropriations process has been issues like the dietary guidelines implementation, or supplemental nutrition, or school lunch, things of that nature. Where do you stand on those issues, and how do you think those issues played a role in the ag appropriations process?
Well, I got into politics not only because my father was in it, but I wasn't at that time very interested. But what really motivated me was the Peace Corps. And I joined the Peace Corps to fix things that are broken, to solve problems. What I found is that governments, not only our own, but foreign governments, are absolutely essential to creating stabilized markets and to bringing people up to sort of quality of life, living and jobs and everything like that. So I'm an activist with government. I think government certainly has to spend the tax dollar wisely, but it shouldn't be so frugal that it fails to do its job. And that's one of the things that I find is happening in the Appropriations Committee. Until recently, we used to be the committee that could earmark. But now the earmarks are banned. We're doing the opposite of earmarking. We're earmarking don't spend any money, and don't do this, and don't do that, and don't do that. So that's the problem the committee has. And I've been very upset with the direction the committee's been taking in sort of preventing the Department of Agriculture and preventing the Food and Drug Administration and even the Commodities Future Trading Commission from doing their job and doing it well.
Now, shifting gears a little bit here, you've got possibly more experience than anyone in the House of Representatives when it comes to organic legislation, because when you were a representative in the California Legislature, you were dealing with the organic issues. Did you ever see organic agriculture and policy thereof becoming as big of an issue as it has become?
Well, it was brought to me as a state legislator from organic growers in my district who were threatened because there were no regulations. You could stamp anything organic, no requirements that the grower be certified. And so I carried legislation to essentially set all that certification process up and set up enforcement and set up financing of it. The federal government adopted the California bill. In fact, the same year, Senator Cranston from California and Senator Leahy from Vermont authored the national organic standards. The laws weren't implemented until Glickman, colleague here in Congress who became Secretary of Agriculture, we pushed him finally to get the federal guidelines and rules adopted. And it has since then just taken off. Yes, we knew that it would take off. And that's why we had to leave certain state regulations up to the federal. For example, only the federal government can inspect poultry and meat. If you're going to have meat and poultry standards, you got to have the federal government set those standards. States can't do it. But I think California has done very well by this, and it is certainly sustaining an awful lot of agriculture for the small farmer, and now you see big farmers getting into it. But I think you're always going to have the farmer's market and restaurants buying directly from the farmer, and even schools now incorporating farmers coming in and telling all about the crop they're growing and how they grow it and why it's good for you to eat.
Now, kind of on that same subject, whenever somebody talks organic policy, the next subject is always GMO labeling. And so with that in mind, it was largely thought that 2015 was going to be the year that the food fight came to Washington as far as GMO labeling was concerned. We've seen some state-by-state action, including a little bit of effort in California, your home state, to do some stuff with GMO labeling. Where do you see that debate going, and do you think this is something that the United States Congress is going to have to address?
I think the debate on GMO is here to stay, and I think we're going to have to address it at the federal level. If not, you're going to get 50 different state regulations, and the industry will cry out for some regulations, some national standards, rather than uncertainty in wherever you're marketing your food. I think the debate is a good one to have. I mean, the difficulty I have is that we support genetic modification if it can prove paralysis in human beings or save lives and things like that. I mean, for the Human Genome Project, there is a lot of discussion about cellular modification. But I don't know why we're keen on it for human beings, but not so keen on it for plants. And we've been hybridizing plants. So I have mixed feelings. I don't know whether it's gonna, the reason you put labeling on something is warning for health safety, allergies for peanuts and things like that. But I don't know whether the science, at least the medical science, has not shown that genetically modified plant organisms are a threat to your health. And I think that's wherein the argument gets a little off base. If we start just sort of doing everybody's concerns and labeling it, we will lose the effectiveness of honesty in labeling. So, yeah, I think we need to have that debate, and I think Congress needs to engage itself. But I frankly don't know how far it's going, because eventually it's going to have to catch up with what we're doing with animal and human genetics that are very important, I think, to medical future of mankind.
Now, looking at you personally, we mentioned your experience in the Peace Corps and in the California Legislature. How did those two experiences, and also working as a staffer in the California Legislature, how did that prepare you for your time in the House of Representatives?
Well, we're all about making laws. That's what we're here. We're lawmakers, and in that we set policy. We also set the law and the standards for spending money, and have to approve money being spent. I mean, you really what I think my previous experiences gave me two things. One, first of all, the understanding of human beings, the culture of poverty, what it's like to live when people really have no choices. Those who are well educated and understand, they project on people in poverty, thinking if they would just, take care of themselves, it'll be all right. When you live in poverty, and I saw that in the Peace Corps, you don't have any choices. You don't have choices for food, that you're going to eat the same thing every day. You don't have choices for clothes. You don't own any. You don't have to be able to wear something different tomorrow. Your day isn't different. You don't have choices about anything. You don't have choices where you're going to go because you have no money. When you live in poverty, you live as a victim of the moment. And it seems to me that really taught me that somebody's got to intervene And that's where it's so important for government to make sure that people have access to education, so they can read and write and have some choices, that they can have access to health care, so if they're sick or have a broken bone, it can be taken care of, or they have access to a safe place to sleep. We've learned from the homeless population here that if you don't have a safe place to sleep, you don't have a chance, because you're not going to listen to anybody who's telling you need counseling or need other, skill development. So the Peace Corps really taught me about the human understanding, depending a lot about where you are in life. And I think what working in the legislature did and is taught me how to make laws and how to make public policy and how to analyze, because one of my first jobs was critiquing the budget decisions of the California Legislature, the Legislative Analyst's Office, and it really taught me some fiscal tools. So, in many ways, I think I'm kind of a policy wonk on good law and good spending policy. That's not necessarily essential to be in the United States Congress. This is a very generic, you can make laws very generically here without a lot of specifics and without a lot of understanding what the impacts are. Because, this is the oldest political institution in the country, and probably the one that has the oldest bureaucracy, because it hasn't had pressure to change, whereas state legislatures and cities and counties are the laboratories for political change, and they are modernized and very transparent, much more so than Congress, and much more analytical about the impacts of lawmaking and budget details, spending or not spending.
And just to wrap it up here, Congressman, you mentioned that you were originally elected in 1993. So in your 20 plus years of congressional service, what do you think is the biggest change that you've seen here on Capitol Hill?
Well, I think America's changed, and I think a lot of it has to do with the way our internet and Facebook and the information that we used to have trusted leaders who are policy wonks on things, and when they said something, you believed it. Now we sell fear, and we sell doubt, and we sell uncertainty. That's what people love to grab and find out what do I have to be afraid of today, and what do I have to be uncertain about? And we've done, I think the industry of fear has just capsulated America. Not only, just look at all the locks and alarms and things that we've done. And security is all about what we talk about. So we've lost the ability just to sort of be good on American policy for this country. We're into sort of the special little niche markets of fear, and one of them is fear of government. It's got debt. Well, I have debt, I have a mortgage, and I have a bunch of other loans out. I'm not afraid of those things because I worked out a plan to spend. All we have to have is a plan. How are you going to pay it off? And once you have the plan, people are happy, because the government's going to live up to its commitments. But right now, we're attacking government, dismantling government, and I think that's very harmful, and I'm really worried about where we end up.
Congressman Sam Farr from California's 20th District, thank you for joining us.